Hey Coach, I know there's been a game in between, but since you see him again tonight, when you take a look back at Friday's game, won the possession battle, only had 4 turnovers, but lost on the glass. So now that you've had time to look at the film, look at tonight's matchup, what do you think you guys can do differently to win the rebounding battle?
Yeah, well, the rebounding is part of the possession battle. You know, if they're offensive rebounding, those are extra possessions for them. And to your point, we've got to do a better job on the glass. I think, you know, whether it's Gonzalez, Shireman, Walsh, Hauser, those guys are all, in addition to, you know, other guys that I didn't mention, they're just committed to crashing from the perimeter on threes. And it's hard to get everybody off the glass. It really hurt us late. I thought Walsh did a terrific job coming in, impacting the game that way. So there's other things as well as you look at the film, but that's something that we're aware of and need to do a better job. Is not just getting bodies on people that are crashing, but coming up with there was some loose ball rebounds that even though the player that was crashing didn't get it, they were able to keep it alive. They came up with those and they convert on them too. I think that's the other thing. You know, when you give up offensive rebounds, that hurts, but when they turn into second chance points, you know, you pay for it even more.
Coach, with Ronald Moore moving on to Butler, did that precipitate a move for someone to the front of the bench?
Ryan Schmitz sitting there right now, and those are all things that our whole staff has done a great job this entire year. So certainly some of the things Ron has done for us will get absorbed. Those guys are used to covering for each other all the time. A lot of that will sort through when the season's over. But more than anything, when I hear Ron's name, I'm just excited for him for the opportunity.
Quin, obviously, this team wants to get out of transition. You want to try to generate points off turnover, but also wants more of a slower pace. What can you do tonight to try to swing it more in your favor and get up and down?
Well, I think the most obvious thing is you got to play defense. And, you know, when a team, you know, they have a style of play that fits their team. You know, Joe's done a terrific job identifying, you know, where their strengths are, and they play to them. They're hard to disrupt because they have so many really efficient ball handlers. So whether it's White or Pritchard, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, you go down the line, those guys are all capable of handling the ball. So it's hard to speed them up, you know, as much as anything. That's why I think not giving them extra possessions is so important, and, you know, trying to limit how efficient they are offensively, because at times you're good. And you know, for us, you know, we have to be efficient in the half court as well, because we're not always going to be able to get out in transition. We know that, and I think we have been to a large degree. Our spacing was not good last game. And we put ourselves in some positions where we didn't shoot a good percentage, but I thought that we've got to do a better job. We can do a better job in those situations.
Coach, not a lot of people had Boston as the number 2 seed in the East. You touched upon it just a second ago a little bit, but what do you think in particular Joe Mazzulla has done well from a coaching perspective?
Well, I'll say it again, because I believe it. I think, you know, anytime your roster changes, when you lose a player of Jason Tatum's caliber, you know, you adjust. And I think that's in this league. You know, that's as coaches, that's a big part of the job, and not just that, but trying to find efficiencies. You know what they've done as far as the way they play. They've got a real purpose with what they do on both ends of the floor. You know, they do a great job of protecting the paint and, you know, just really aggressive with their help situations. And then the offensive stuff is really the part that, you know, people look at the most. And it's a credit to, you know, Pritchard, Brown, a lot of guys that you know, have evolved even more so as players, are getting more usage and opportunities. And what Joe's done is figure out a way to play that, you know, that maximizes the personnel that you have. And I think that ultimately that's fundamentally when I look at them and watch them play, why I would say that, you know, he's done such a terrific job.
Coach, with the way McKeel's playing right now, it just looks like the game is easy to him, and he told me he's playing more peaceful basketball, not so focused on being consistent and perfect and understanding he's human and he can make mistakes. Where have you seen the biggest stride, maybe even just on the mental side for McKeel over this past month?
Yeah, I think Nikhil, and it's something that he and I have talked about a lot. You know, it's easy to get focused on a result and an outcome, and that can take you away from, you know, the things that, you know, you can do and the things that you can't control. And he works so hard and he's so focused, and that it's easy for him to get distracted when something doesn't go the way that, you know, you'd like it to go. And I love that he used that word. You know, I was going to use the word joyful. He's so competitive that you just got to make sure to remind him, you know, that there's a bigger picture in the game. And there's a bigger picture, frankly, with life. I think the more perspective he has and the more balance that he approaches, you know, the game with, you know, the more freedom he has, freedom to make mistakes and also freedom to attack, because, you know, I want him to attack and be aggressive. And when you do that, there's things aren't gonna miss, you know, and the focus needs to go on, not on whether the ball needs to go in or a turnover, but, you know, here's why I turned it over and here's what I can do differently. He's been able to do that. And I think you see him getting better, you know, like one thing he's done in the last month, he's been more efficient in pick and roll. He's passing now the pick and roll. Give him a hard time. He's got to learn how to pass with his right hand too. You know, he'll probably be back there working on it. No, he's a wonderful guy to coach. And, you know how he cares so much, and sometimes my job is to not get him to care less, but to care a little different.
Got a 4-month plus sample now of